Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Verlicity AI Podcast. I'm Cristian Worthington.
And I'm Sandra Giffin. It seems like every other day there's a new headline stoking fears about artificial intelligence. AI will take all our jobs. AI poses an existential risk. AI is uncontrollable. The negativity can feel overwhelming.
And those concerns aren't entirely baseless. AI is a profoundly powerful technology, and like any new technology, it carries risks and presents significant societal challenges. But today, we want to make the case for optimism. We want to explore why a lot of the current negativity, while understandable, might be failing to grasp the big picture.
We'll show you that a pessimistic analysis of AI fails to account for the dynamic and adaptive nature of humans. We're going to dig into history, explore the psychology of risk, and offer a more hopeful perspective on our AI future.
But before we make our case for optimism, Sandra, I think it's crucial that we give the negative arguments their day in court.
I agree. Let's quickly break down the negativity into the three major categories we see today, starting with the one that affects everyone's daily life, the economy.
The economic fear is the easiest to grasp. We opened the last show with that Goldman Sachs report suggesting AI could automate tasks equivalent to 300 million jobs. A pessimist imagines a future of permanent mass unemployment.
And the fear goes deeper than just job losses. There's the issue of wage stagnation and inequality. Even if people have jobs, the value of human labor plummets because AI can do most high-value tasks.
This would lead to a world where the owners of the AI technology accumulate unprecedented wealth, while the vast majority of the population competes for low-paying service jobs that AI hasn't yet mastered, and in turn it would result in the de-skilling of the workforce as humans become totally reliant on AI.
So basically, economic Armageddon.
Yep. The economic asteroid is heading toward Earth. The pessimists seem to think we're all going to be sitting on our hands collecting a welfare check as the asteroid slams into Earth.
So aside from joining the dinosaurs in the fossil record, the pessimists have more subtle concerns. Beyond economic fears, ethicists are raising the alarm that AIs are biased and prone to discrimination. They invade our privacy, and they can be manipulative.
A picture emerges of an Orwellian society in which AI surveils our every move and controls our behavior.
And the specter of deep fakes and misinformation that's indistinguishable from real information.
Ah, yes, the so-called death of truth scenario.
In effect, it would be the collapse of reality as we know it.
The assumption is that a world dominated by AI systems will destroy the fabric of society.
And then there's the big one, the good old singularity.
How could any pessimistic discussion about AI not include the Terminator scenario? The singularity, or what people in the industry dryly call the alignment problem.
It's often illustrated by the classic paperclip maximizer scenario, where you tell a super-intelligent AI to make as many paperclips as possible. The AI, in its single-minded pursuit of the goal, decides to convert all matter on Earth into paperclips.
It might even see humans as an obstacle to this goal and decide to kill all the humans because they are slowing down paperclip production.
If nothing else, it makes you look at paperclips differently.
Yes, and perhaps more plausibly, the fear of lethal autonomous weapons, or killer robots. The success of drones in the Ukraine war has certainly awoken the world to the tactical advantage of drones. Imagine autonomous drones piloted by AI.
So, a bleak picture on all fronts. We're all going to be on welfare, our society will unravel into an Orwellian nightmare, and it will all finish with killer robots turning us into paperclips. Is that about right?
Yes, that's the plan. I think I'll just leave now and start building our bunker in the backyard.
But wait, Before you grab a shovel and start digging that bunker, I wonder if we should take a moment to think this through. Maybe, just maybe, there's a case for optimism.
Okay, sounds good. I wasn't looking forward to all that digging.
Don't get me wrong, the concerns we've outlined are important to consider and measures need to be taken to address these concerns. Even if there's a low probability of these outcomes, they are valid concerns. But today we want to look at what we think is a more likely outcome.
Let's start with the most common fear, that AI will lead to mass unemployment. The argument is that AI will become so capable it will simply automate most human jobs out of existence.
It's a visceral fear, and on the surface, it seems logical. But history offers a powerful counter-narrative. Think about the last century, Chris. We've seen wave after wave of technological disruption. The rise of mass manufacturing, the mechanization of agriculture, and the digital revolution has had several waves.
Take agriculture, for instance. In the early 1900s, something like 40% of the U.S. workforce was employed in farming. Today, it's less than 2%. If you told someone in 1920 that 95% of farming jobs would disappear, they would have predicted mass starvation and societal collapse.
Exactly. And that's just farming. The entire supply chain of food transformed in the last century. Prior to the 1900s, almost 80% of the society was engaged in feeding people. Our society wouldn't function today if we had to devote that much labor to growing and producing food.
So, what happened? Why didn't we all end up starving to death?
Technology dramatically increased food production with far fewer people.
Did we see mass, permanent unemployment?
No, we saw a shift. People moved from farms to factories, then from factories to offices, and now into entirely new digital realms. Society adapted. New industries were born, and with them, entirely new categories of jobs.
It's the classic concept of creative destruction, coined by economist Joseph Schumpeter. Old industries and jobs decline, but new, often more productive and higher value ones emerge. Think about the jobs that exist today that were unimaginable even 50 years ago.
Software developer, data scientist, social media manager, user experience designer, genetic counselor, drone operator, AI ethicist, prompt engineer. The list is endless. These roles weren't just incremental changes. They were entirely new fields created by technological advancement.
And despite all these transformations, here we are in many developed nations at or near what economists consider full employment.
The nature of work has changed profoundly. The specific jobs have changed. But the fundamental human need and capacity to contribute and create value persists.
It seems the fear of permanent, technology-induced mass unemployment has been a recurring theme for centuries, and it has yet to materialize in the long run. And one other, perhaps more important theme also persists. At each stage in this evolution, the people living in those moments could not have predicted the jobs that would emerge.
Exactly. The argument isn't that AI won't displace specific jobs. It absolutely will, and that transition will be challenging for many. The argument is that it won't lead to a net destruction of work itself, but rather a transformation of what we call work, in ways that are incredibly difficult to predict.
It's interesting, isn't it, how humans tend to focus on the visible, immediate threats, like specific job being automated, rather than the often invisible emergent opportunities that new technologies create. We seem to be wired for risk aversion, particularly when it comes to change.
That's a well-documented psychological bias. Losses feel more impactful than equivalent gains. And the potential losses from AI, like job displacement, are concrete and easy to imagine. The future gains, new industries, new roles, increased productivity leading to new societal benefits, are more abstract and harder to quantify.
But this focus on immediate risk often overlooks two incredibly powerful forces: the adaptability of markets and the adaptability of people. Markets are not static. When a new technology emerges, demand shifts. Businesses retool, reinvest, and seek out new opportunities created by that technology. We're seeing this investment happening now.
If AI makes creating softwares, for example, 10 times cheaper and faster, we won't just see a 90% reduction in software developers. We'll see an explosion in new software applications, businesses built on those applications, and new services supporting that ecosystem. Things that were previously too expensive or too complex to even attempt.
And people adapt. We learn new skills. We shift careers. Education systems evolve, slowly perhaps, but they do respond to new demands. The very notion of a lifelong career in one field is a relatively recent concept and is already giving way to the idea of lifelong learning and multiple career pivots.
This brings us to a simple concept from game theory. When one player in a game makes a move, like AI automating a task, other players don't just sit still. They adapt their strategies.
So if AI becomes proficient at task X, human workers will increasingly focus on task Y, which requires complementary skills like critical thinking, emotional intelligence, or complex problem solving that AI currently lacks. This creates a dynamic interplay, a co-evolution, rather than a simple replacement.
Dynamic systems change in response to the new elements. Humans are incredibly good at changing systems. You could say that finding new niches, new problems to solve, new ways to create value is our superpower.
So what about the fear that we're slow walking into an Orwellian society of AI surveillance, manipulation, and a death of truth?
This fear taps into our anxieties about control and privacy. The pessimistic view assumes that technology will inevitably strip us of our privacy and that we will be helpless victims. But this misreads the nature of privacy itself. Privacy isn't a static, absolute concept. It's a dynamic trade-off. We constantly negotiate.
What do you mean by that?
Think about it. We routinely give up pieces of our privacy in exchange for tangible benefits. We give Google our location data in exchange for real-time traffic updates that save us hours in the car. We give Amazon our purchase history in exchange for personalized recommendations that save us time searching. We allow health apps to monitor our vital signs in exchange for insights that could improve our well-being.
So the question isn't whether we will give up privacy, it's what we get in return. The key isn't to build an impenetrable wall around our data, which would also block out immense benefits. The key is to implement workable rules and demand transparency about that trade-off.
Exactly. This is one of those micro-adjustments we'll talk about later. We as a society are already pushing back and setting boundaries. We're demanding data ownership rights. We're developing privacy-preserving technologies. We're seeing the rise of AI tools that can detect deep fakes. These tools act like an immune system response to the threat of misinformation.
So the Orwellian scenario assumes we are passive subjects, but in reality, we are active participants. We are constantly evaluating the bargain. If a service becomes too invasive for the benefit it provides, people abandon it or demand change. If misinformation becomes too rampant, a market for trusted, verified information becomes more valuable. The system adapts.
The death of truth is not a foregone conclusion. It's a challenge that creates a powerful incentive for the creation of new solutions for truth verification. The future is less likely to be a top-down Orwellian state and more likely to be a complex ecosystem where we have more sophisticated tools to manage our privacy and verify our information, because the demand for those tools will be immense.
All right, that addresses the societal fears, but we have to tackle the biggest one: existential risk. The Terminator scenario. The fear of an uncontrollable, misaligned superintelligence that could pose a threat to humanity itself. How can we possibly be optimistic about that?
This is the hardest fear to address because it deals with high levels of uncertainty and a potentially catastrophic outcome. The key here isn't to dismiss the risk, but to place it in the context of how humanity has historically managed other existential threats. We already have experience coexisting with technologies that could end civilization.
You're talking about nuclear weapons.
Precisely. Since the mid-20th century, we have lived with a technology capable of destroying humanity many times over. The threat is real and ever-present. So what did we do? We didn't ban physics. We engaged in a decades-long, incredibly complex process of managing that risk.
We developed international treaties, communication hotlines, and complex doctrines like mutually assured destruction. It's a terrifying form of stability, but it's a stability that has so far prevented catastrophe.
And it was achieved because all stakeholders understood the risk and worked to control it. The same logic applies to managing the existential risk of AI. The response to this threat isn't to halt progress. It's to accelerate research into AI safety and alignment. It's to foster global dialogue and treaties among AI developers and nations.
So the existence of a risk doesn't automatically mean the worst-case scenario will happen. The forewarning of the risk is what galvanizes the counter-response. The fear of nuclear war is precisely what created the global framework to prevent it.
Yes. The brightest minds in the field are not ignoring this problem. They are actively working on it. As the saying goes, forewarned is forearmed.
Obviously, AI is progressing faster than nuclear technology did in the early 20th century, and it's harder to verify what a foreign government is doing with AI.
That's true. But we have our best scientists, ethicists, and policymakers working on this problem, and the incentives for national governments to keep this genie in the bottle are as high as they are with nuclear technology.
As I think about it, this idea of dynamic recalibration brings me to an analogy I find incredibly powerful: the bicycle.
The bicycle? Explain that one.
Well, think about a bicycle when it's stationary. It's an inherently unstable object. It has two thin wheels, a narrow frame it wants to fall over. If you look at a stationary bicycle and try to statically analyze its properties, you would quickly conclude it's a completely unviable mode of transportation.
That's true. It takes incredible effort just to keep it upright when it's not moving.
But then something magical happens when the bicycle starts moving forward. The rider makes constant, tiny micro adjustments to the handlebars, to their balance. The bicycle is always in a state of near disaster. It's always just moments away from tipping over, lurching slightly to the left, then slightly to the right.
And each of those micro adjustments, if you were to freeze frame it, would look like a mistake. If the bike is leaning left and the rider turns slightly left to correct, that turn itself, in isolation, would cause it to fall if held static.
Exactly. If you stop making those adjustments at any point, the bicycle falls over. But the magic of this dynamic system is that each turn, each adjustment, is not the final word. It's part of a continuous flow of corrections that keeps the bicycle upright and moving towards its destination. The stability isn't in any single position. It's in the motion and the constant adjustment.
So you're proposing that those who try to analyze AI's future from a static model, looking at its current capabilities, its current flaws, its current potential for misuse, are like someone looking at a stationary bicycle and declaring it fundamentally unsafe and unworkable?
Precisely. They're failing to understand how this evolution will transpire. The micro adjustments in the world of AI are human innovation, market responses, user feedback shaping development, ethical guidelines being developed, safety protocols being researched and implemented, and even AI models themselves learning and improving. It's a dynamic process, not a fixed state.
This bicycle analogy connects powerfully to an even grander dynamic system, biological evolution. Evolution is a process of constant change, adaptation, mutation, and selection pressure. There's no grand plan, no top-down design. Yet, it has produced an incredible diversity of complex, resilient, and highly adapted life forms.
It's a beautiful comparison. Ecosystems themselves are dynamic. Predator-prey relationships, symbiotic partnerships, resource competition. It's all in constant flux, constantly adjusting. A forest fire might seem like a catastrophe, but it also clears the way for new growth, for different species to thrive. It's a system that self-corrects and adapts over time.
And it should be comforting to our listeners to understand that the bicycle, or an evolving AI ecosystem, isn't some strange anomaly. Thousands of systems, our lives depend on function in this dynamic, seemingly on the edge fashion. Think about an airplane in flight. It's constantly making minute adjustments to its control surfaces to counteract turbulence and stay on course. Its stability is active, not passive.
Our own bodies are incredible dynamic systems, maintaining homeostasis through countless biochemical adjustments every second. The global economy is another, a vast, complex network of interactions that, despite its lurches and crises, has shown remarkable adaptability and growth over centuries.
So, when we look at AI, perhaps we should see it less as a fixed, predictable machine and more as a nascent ecosystem, or a rider learning to balance a new kind of bicycle. There will be wobbles, there will be near misses, but the process of learning, adapting, and moving forward is inherent to the system. This understanding of AI as a dynamic, evolving system has profound implications for how we approach its governance and legislation, Chris.
It does. If AI is constantly learning, adapting, and being reshaped by its interactions with the world, then trying to impose rigid, overly prescriptive, static laws based on its current capabilities or our current fears could be counterproductive.
It's like trying to teach a child to ride a bicycle by first making them memorize a 500-page physics textbook on dynamic equilibrium. The theory might be correct in a static sense, but it's useless for the actual act of riding, and might even instill so much fear and overthinking that the child never gets on the bike.
Worse, such premature, heavy-handed regulation could inadvertently lock in the technology at a suboptimal stage of development. It could stifle the very innovations that might solve some of the problems we're worried about, or prevent the emergence of beneficial applications we can't even conceive of yet.
Think about the early days of the internet. If governments in 1995 had tried to legislate the exact future of e-commerce, social media, or mobile applications, based on what was then possible with dial-up modems and basic HTML, they would have created a monstrously distorted and limited version of what we have today.
So, the approach needs to be adaptive itself, perhaps focusing on broad principles, like safety, transparency, accountability, fairness, rather than specific technical mechanisms. We need regulations that can evolve with the technology, not regulations that try to freeze it in time. It's about setting guardrails for the road, not dictating the exact design of every future bicycle.
This leads us to championing what we might call a free market of ideas in AI development. This is crucial if we want this technology to reach its full positive potential.
What do you mean by that, specifically?
I mean, fostering an environment where multiple approaches to AI development can flourish, where there's competition between different models, different ethical frameworks, and different applications. Open experimentation within those broad ethical guardrails we just discussed allows the most beneficial, robust, and human-aligned solutions to emerge through a process of discovery and iteration.
This is a direct contrast to a top-down monolithic approach where a central authority tries to dictate the correct path for AI. Such an approach is fragile and prone to massive error because no single entity can foresee all the consequences or understand all the potential of such a complex technology.
A diverse ecosystem of AI development also allows for diverse human values to be integrated from many different angles. Different cultures, different communities, different industries will all have unique perspectives and needs. A decentralized competitive landscape is more likely to produce AI systems that serve this broad spectrum of human interests.
Now, some listeners will immediately say, but isn't that incredibly risky, just letting it evolve freely?
And that's where we come back to the bicycle. Yes, there are moments of lurching, of near imbalance. The process is not without risk. But the micro-adjustments in this free market of ideas are constant. They include rigorous safety research, the development of alignment techniques, robust public discourse, ethical review boards, industry best practices, and even consumer choice driving developers towards safer and more beneficial products. These are all parts of the dynamic balancing act.
It's not about an absence of oversight. It's about fostering smart, adaptive oversight that guides rather than smothers, that encourages responsible innovation rather than attempting to predict and prevent every conceivable future state.
So, as we draw this discussion to a close, what's the core message for our listeners grappling with the pervasive negativity around AI?
There are 3 simple points. First, time after time, history shows us that disruption due to technology leads to transformation, not termination, of human work and purpose. Second, humans and markets are incredibly adaptive, and the static fears of today often overlook the dynamic responses of tomorrow. And third, AI itself is best understood not as a fixed object, but as a dynamic, evolving system, like that bicycle, constantly responding to adjustments.
And these understandings should be a source of optimism. We're not arguing for blind Pollyannish faith, but a reasoned confidence in the power of dynamic systems and human ingenuity. And we certainly are not arguing that there won't be plenty of headlines in the future about cases where AI causes harm. There will definitely be failures, and adjustments will be needed. But we don't see the future of AI as something that simply happens to us. It's something we will actively co-create through millions of micro-adjustments.
Our call to action, then, is not to succumb to fear, but to engage with AI critically and optimistically. Focus on adaptation, on learning, on understanding the principles of these new tools, and on participating in shaping their ethical and beneficial deployment.
The AI bicycle is wobbly, and the journey ahead is uncertain, but by keeping our eyes on the horizon and continuing to pedal and adjust, we can navigate this path together.
The key to stability in AI or cycling is to keep moving forward.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Tell us how you see this evolution happening in your life.
Share your experiences with us at Verlicity.ai or tag us at Verlicity AI on your favorite social media platform.
And as always, please share this podcast with anyone you think would find this conversation valuable. You'll find us on all the popular podcast apps and on YouTube. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing so you don't miss our ongoing explorations into the ever-evolving world of AI.
I'm Cristian Worthington.
And I'm Sandra Giffin. Until next time, stay positive and remember to keep pedaling forward. We're all on this ride together.